Most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had. And all they care about is, how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just write Steve Rogers. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino. Glenn O'Leary, 100% is exactly who SJW's Cancel Pigs picture when they think of OG comic book fans. When they talk about owning the Chuds or Comicsgate, they picture Glenn O'Leary. Even if they don't actually, they're not actually thinking of Glenn O'Leary, the man himself. But he looks exactly like the person that they picture when they think of OG comic book fans. This is how they all look to Cancel Pigs. Nothing that O'Leary said was wrong. He spit 100% facts. And it's not just even an opinion. It's true. Comic books, particularly superhero comic books, have been destroyed because you have writers who are not talented enough to write stories for the readers. This is all glorified fan fiction to them because they don't actually care about superheroes. You have lesbians and trans people and non-binary people writing comic books that they don't care about for an audience that they hate, just as sort of a way to try to break into Hollywood or get Netflix deals and that kind of thing. You have men, which is really funny to me, so-called men, getting mad at O'Leary, talking about self-inserts. And it's really funny to see them, of all people, caring about a man saying he doesn't want to see self-inserts in superhero comics. Because
this for the bitches, nigga.
So, you have somebody like Jamal Igle, telling this ridiculous story about this comic book shop he used to go to that smelled like piss. The owner smelled like piss. The mom, I think, looked like Jabba the Hutt, something like that. And he's basically equating this comic book store to O'Leary, suggesting that O'Leary smells like piss and he's a racist and that kind of thing. So you have people who are just mad. They're not engaging with his argument. They're just attacking him, calling him comic book guy and just making fun of him, calling him a chud, whatever. And that's, that always happens. That's something that I always talk about, that you can complain about something, you can criticize something, and there'll be people who will just attack you for it. And they won't actually engage with the argument. They'll insult you, whatever. Happens all the time. So you have that group of people, of course. And it's funny, you have these guys talking about his weight and stuff like that. And, body positivity is supposed to be such a big deal with Cancel Pigs, but body positivity isn't for men. It's for women. So you have that group attacking him for his appearance, attacking him, calling him a racist and that. Then you have this other group of people who pretend they don't understand what a self-insert is versus, because you have people talking about, a writer shouldn't put their heart and soul into a story. That's not what he's saying. And you can't be that stupid to think that. Although, SJWs are idiots. So maybe they do believe he means, when he says self-insert, he means you can't put your experience and your perspective in a story. That's not what he's saying. He said it. Nobody wants to read a story where you say, this is what I would do if I was Spider-Man. What's funny about it, as much as SJW's Cancel Pigs have been running rampant in the culture, comic books, movies, video games, as much as they've been running rampant and causing all this trouble for 6, 7 years, maybe even more than that. The first person I thought of when I listened to O'Leary's rant, and I don't really consider it a rant. He's not unhinged. He's not a schizo like me or whatever, right? But the first person I thought of was Brian Michael Bendis, who's done tremendous harm to comic books over the years. When people look back on his legacy, it's going to be just messed up. I think about Miles and how Miles has been used as a tool, a weapon against OG fans. I look at aging John Kent up so that he could be turned gay now. His terrible Superman run and making Superman a cuck, and Lois went back with Jor-El to get just plowed by him and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, Bendis, he was one of the first people who I remember reading saying that he wrote Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, from the point of view of what Bendis himself would be like as a 17-year-old or a teenage superhero, rather. So he would say stuff like, yeah, the reason why Peter Parker told Mary Jane that he was Spider-Man so quickly is because that's what I would do. I would try to get laid. I would try to impress the girl, blah, 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 stuff like that. It's like, that's not the point of Spider-Man. Not the point of superheroes, period. Being written from the point of view of just some average, selfish, clownish goofball. It's one of those things that, Spider-Man had that moment where he was a dick and he paid for it and he didn't end up lashing out against society, which most people would do. He decided to use his power and be responsible for it. And Spider-Man's an aspirational hero, despite the fact that he's a street level hero. He's still aspirational. He's not Superman aspirational, but he's aspirational in the sense that, everyday slubs who relate to him and relate to his kind of his struggles could see that, yes, you can push yourself to do what you need to do when you have to do it. You don't have to be crushed by life and the Parker luck type thing, right? So it's just funny though, because when this guy O'Leary was saying he doesn't want to see self-inserts, that's what he's talking about. I don't want to see things from your small-minded point of view, from your lack of appreciation of superhero comics. Something I've said, I saw a tweet by EBS, this thing where it's like women in particular don't take superheroes seriously. They think that they're power fantasies that are sexist and stupid. This is what I mean when I say women shouldn't be writing Spider-Man stories. They shouldn't be writing Batman stories in particular, because their particular struggles are inherent to what men can relate to. And for women, that's just silly. It's stupid to them. And they don't respect it. So all they're going to do is just put in their dumb stuff. They're going to write stories where Catwoman says she knows better how to protect Gotham by turning criminals into cat burglars for her to just rob from the rich. So you have this really silly attitude. Again, some of the people were going after his looks and going after him just being a, comic book nerd guy. And the other people were pretending that he was saying that self-inserts means you can't, as a writer, put your own heart and soul into a story, which is just silly. Because what a self-insert is Mindy Kaling making herself Velma, and then making Velma somebody that everybody wants to go to bed with. Everybody looks up to and admires. A self-insert is Mariko Tamaki making herself the daughter of Starfire, when Starfire would never have a daughter that looks like Mariko Tamaki. A self-insert is Rey and Jyn Erso, all these brunette heroines that started leading Star Wars stories. That's what a self-insert is. It's not Jack Kirby creating the Thing and having the same personality as the Thing, or being Jewish or that kind of thing. That's not what a self-insert is. Putting yourself into a story, especially if you created the character, makes perfect sense if you use yourself or people around you in your story to create the character. What's happening is, though, they're taking people like Peter Parker, Steve Rogers, and Tony Stark. They're taking people like that and making them act like punching bags for their agenda. You got Tony Stark sniveling and crying and apologizing to people like Hellcat, who shouldn't mean anything to him, but he's constantly being shit on because he's rich and white. It's like how they do this thing where they say, oh, comic books were always political. And that's not what we mean. We mean partisan politics. We don't want a story about how Batman has to lose his billionaire status because he's a rich white man that's problematic. Nobody wants to read that in a Batman comic. Nobody wants that. That's what a self-insert means. That's what it means to inject politics in a story that we don't like. Not having a perspective about the human condition or society, but stupid, silly stuff like, oh, now Supergirl has to wear pants. That's the stuff that O'Leary is talking about. The fact that they attacked them so much, it's the thing they always do. And it's just funny to me, though, that they shut up immediately when they realized that it wasn't going to go for them the way that it used to do. This has been a great year for the anti-woke. And the anti-woke isn't about diversity and inclusion. It's about the way this stuff is implemented. They know that. It's just like, they took O'Leary's words out of context, or they just didn't address them at all because they're just mad that he was complaining about this sort of thing. They were telling on themselves. It's like cancel pigs do this thing where they say, well, when I criticize a man and I say bad things about what men do, if you get mad, you're telling on yourself because that means you feel called out. Well, these people, especially these men, which again is really weird, these men who got mad at O'Leary felt called out about self-inserts. They like self-inserts. They want this silly nonsense to be in comic books. They think that's actually helping people. Like I said, they were framing it as, the people who tried to argue with this point were framing it like it meant insert meant representation when it doesn't. And then others try to make it sound like, oh, he doesn't like a writer to put their own heart and feeling in the story. And that's not what he meant, because these people are not putting their heart and soul into it. They're putting their agenda into it. Again, this is about their agenda. They're squatters. They don't care about this stuff, just like he said. They're using this as a way to own the chuds, a way to try to get into Hollywood, to get Netflix deals, they couldn't go anywhere else. Their YA books fail. Their scripts are not being bought. So they go to comic books where they're paid pennies and they're being used as political tools for activists and cancel pigs against people like Glenn O'Leary, who again, 100% looks like how SJWs think all straight white comic book fans who've loved comic books all their lives look.